In February 1994, police excavating the rear garden at 25 Cromwell Street in Gloucester found human remains buried beneath the patio. But what the police found was far worse. Police would eventually uncover not only the murdered and dismembered remains of Heather, but also 8 additional bodies buried in the garden and cellar, exposing Fred and Rose West as 2 married serial killers who abused, raped, and murdered several young women and girls, including their own children, in the Gloucester area between 1967 and 1987. Finding Heather's remains was just the beginning of what would become one of Britain's most horrific murder investigations. Fred West was arrested and admitted he had killed Heather in interviews with Gloucester police. "I never intended to hurt Heather at all. All I wanted to do was persuade her to stay at home," he says in a recording shared in the series. The forceful way he killed Heather suggests otherwise. West dismembered his daughter with a bread knife, and he describes taking a piece of electric flex and tying it around her neck to make sure she was dead. What police discovered next revealed the true scope of the horror. That evening, having been formally charged with his daughter's murder and questioned as to why police had also discovered a 3rd thigh bone, Fred confessed there were 2 further sets of human remains in his garden and agreed to return to Cromwell Street to reveal the locations of both graves. Over the course of 2 months in 1994, detectives ultimately found the bones of 12 victims they linked to Fred and his wife of 22 years, Rose West, as detailed in the Netflix docuseries Fred and Rose West, a British horror story. 3 victims, including Heather, were buried under the paving stones in the couple's yard at 25 Cromwell Street in Gloucestershire. 6 more were dug up out of the cellar, 2 were pulled from a nearby field, and the 12th was found under the kitchen foundation at the West's former address. The police recordings reveal a chilling pattern of how the couple operated together. Beginning in 1967, Fred abducted, raped, and killed at least 12 young women, and Rose was convicted of 10 murders that date back to the early 1970s. Caroline Owens, a former nanny for the West family in 1972, describes in the series how Fred invited her to join a sex circle between him and Rose. One day, she remembers blacking out and waking up to find herself blindfolded, with her hands tied behind her back and a gag in her mouth on a mattress on the floor. Fred's police interviews reveal how he controlled Rose from the beginning. In newly discovered recordings, Fred describes their twisted dynamic. He pursued Rose when she was just 15 and he was 28, then systematically trained her for his purposes. "I had to go out with this bloke I didn't like and climb into his bed and make love all night and come home in the morning," Rose can be heard saying in a recording. "I am almost completely brainwashed." Fred had established a prostitution operation at their home, using Rose to lure victims while he listened from the next room through hidden microphones. The true horror of their household became clear when investigators interviewed the surviving West children. Police recordings reveal their daughter May saying that Fred sexually abused her and Heather on a daily basis. When police asked for Fred West's reaction to the allegations, he said, "No comment." The documentary features archival footage of their eldest son, Stephen West, saying, "We felt a lot happier to be at school where we felt safe. It was a better place to be than to be at home." Stephen said Rose would often lose her temper. "Once she started hitting us, I felt she found it hard to stop." Stephen said a girlfriend encouraged him to speak up at one point, but that he and the rest of the children were afraid that if they told the truth about what was going on at home, they would be split up by child protection authorities. Most chillingly, when police began investigating the Wests over reports of child abuse, several of their children said the running joke in the family was that if they misbehaved, they would end up under the patio like Heather. What the family treated as a dark joke was actually a threat. And it was true. When Anna Marie was questioned about this family joke regarding Heather being buried beneath the patio, she confirmed that the sole time she had heard her father recite this claim, he had immediately burst into laughter, leading to her refusing to take this claim seriously. As the investigation deepened, Fred began to reveal the methodical nature of their crimes. Police discovered that he couldn't even remember all his victims' names, but he described their murders with disturbing casualness. In one recording, he explains killing Shirley Robinson, who was pregnant with his child and had threatened to tell Rose about their affair. "I just smacked her straight in the jaw, and she went straight on the floor. And then I went and got a piece of flex and tied it round her neck." The couple had turned their home into a house of horrors where they systematically abused their own children while hunting for new victims among vulnerable young women who came to stay as lodgers or nannies. After hearing Fred's chilling confession about using electrical flex to strangle his own daughter, Heather, do you think Rose was equally responsible, or was she manipulated into participating? Drop your answer in the comments below. But Fred's casual descriptions of murder were just the beginning of what investigators would uncover about Rose's own violent nature. But Fred West would never stand trial for his crimes. On January 1st, 1995, Fred West asphyxiated himself in his cell by wrapping an improvised rope he had constructed from a blanket and tags he had stolen from prison laundry bags around his neck, then binding this device to a door handle and window catchment and sinking to his knees. His suicide came just months after his arrest, leaving behind a haunting note that revealed his twisted devotion to Rose even in death. At the bottom of the suicide note found in his cell was a drawing of a gravestone, within which was written, "In loving memory, Fred West, Rose West, rest in peace where no shadow falls. In perfect peace, he waits for Rose, his wife." With Fred dead, the full weight of justice fell on Rose West. Her trial at Winchester Crown Court began on October 3, 1995, with Mr. Justice Mantell and a jury. Unlike her husband's confessions, Rose maintained her innocence throughout the proceedings. But survivors and witnesses painted a devastating picture of her active participation in the horrors. Owens, Anna Marie, and several other survivors of sexual assaults at the West's hands each testified at Rose's trial that she had been by far the more calculating, aggressive, and controlling of the two. Owens stated that, at one stage in her ordeal, Fred had said that they had abducted Owens primarily for Rose's gratification. The evidence against Rose was overwhelming. After 7 weeks of evidence, the judge instructed the jury, emphasizing that circumstantial evidence can be sufficient for a finding of guilt, and that if two people take part in a murder, the law considers them equally guilty regardless of which of them did the deed. The jury needed no lengthy deliberation. On November 21st and 22nd, 1995, the jury returned unanimous guilty verdicts for all 10 murders. Terming her crimes appalling and depraved, Mr. Justice Mantell sentenced Rose to life imprisonment, emphasizing that she should never be paroled. The courage of the West children to speak up had finally brought justice, but at an enormous personal cost. As Government Child Protection Advisor John Fitzgerald observed in the documentary, "These murders would never have come to light if it wasn't for the children of the West saying they had a sister under the patio. They were brave enough to speak up, yet the trauma of their childhood continues to haunt them decades later." Subscribe for more shocking true crime cases and watch this next. It goes even deeper.